Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome all of you on behalf of Academics for Peace North America to today's webinar. We are very excited to have this opportunity to come together with the professors and students of Bogazici University. So let me just briefly introduce you, our organization, Academics for Peace North America, before I just leave the floor to our precious speakers. Academics for Peace North America is a civil initiative with more than 200 members, majority of whom are the signatories of the peace petition, which called for the end of state-sponsored violence against the Kurdish civilians in the Kurdish provinces of Turkey in 2016. And this initiative has been actively working towards building a network in North America to support its members in terms of academic, legal, and social means, as well as championing academic freedom and rights in Turkey. Of course, we also try to build community beyond Turkey through solidarity campaigns, panels, seminars, and institutional collaborations. I'm very excited to moderate this panel and host my colleagues, my professors, and my friends today. So let me just briefly introduce our speakers. Our first speaker is my former professor who taught me political theory, Professor Zeynep Gambetti, who is an emeritus professor of political science from Bogazici University. And our second speaker is Professor Seda Altuğ, who's a good friend, colleague from Bogazici University. And our third speaker is Berivan Tekdal from Bogazici University. And our last speaker is Ömer Demir from Bogazici University. Again, I would like to welcome all of you on behalf of Academics for Peace North America. There are only a few points, remarks that I would like to share with you before we start our webinar. So if you have any questions and comments, please write them down on the chat room, and our technical support team will take your questions and we will just pass them on to our speakers. And we will be live streaming our panel or webinar on YouTube. So you can also have access to this panel from YouTube. And in case of any technical problems, we will also continue our discussion over YouTube. So I would just like to leave the floor to our first speaker, Professor Zeynep Gambetti.
So, thank you very much, Dilan. It's so delightful, actually, to see you and other organizer friends in these hard times. I guess that is what these hard times do to us, make us reunite, actually get together again and sort of rediscover each other. So since we're all going to talk about Bogazici University tonight, the division of labor we did between us is that I'll talk about the nature of the political power this resistance is facing. And so my remarks will be more general, more theoretical, and I hope Seda will focus more on what is happening at Bogazici. What I need to underline is that the AKP government has been hollowing out institutions in the judiciary sphere, the political sphere, the economic and social spheres for the past 5 years. So how is it doing this is important. It is by accruing more and more powers in the hands of the president. by appointing people close to the government to high positions within key institutions, as it did in Bogazici, and by expelling those who do not comply with its objectives. It also meddles with institutional autonomy by promulgating new laws and changing existing rules and regulations, right? Thereby appearing to stay within the limits of legality, stricto sensu. It goes, of course, without saying that these laws and regulations are then constantly bent and reinterpreted so as to create states of exception. A securitarian discourse is employed to this end. For instance, democratically elected Kurdish mayors are labeled terrorists, which then allows for the government to remove them and legally appoint trustees in their place. Likewise, journalists, writers, and academics and students are also framed as terrorists so as to justify their criminalization or expulsion. This process, in my mind, corresponds to a form of Gleichhaltung, a synchronization of all instances in society. So it is a legal as well as economic and at times biopolitical power is used to bring society into line. But as soon as other tactics fail to produce the intended results, of course, sovereign reflexes are deployed, as was the case after the 2016 failed coup, when hundreds of thousands of public employees, including judges, prosecutors, army personnel, police officers, clerks, and academics were removed from their post by decree. The government also at that time closed down 15 universities and expelled thousands of academics from their posts, which is why the Research Institute on Turkey has been created, right? These academics, some of them were able to leave Turkey and are presently in exile in many countries in the world. I believe Seda will be talking more about this. So what I want to point out here is that this synchronization or Gleichschaltung proceeds by hollowing out institutions, but not, in my view, in order to impose any particular well-defined ideology. The aim is to concentrate power in the hands of the government and of the pro-government clique. So religious discourse, nationalism, the discourse of terrorism, of law and order can be, or anti-LGBT discourse can be invariably used to achieve the same. And this actually corresponds to the post-ideological sort of nature of this power. It can navigate between ideologies and use it and bend the ideologies to accommodate its more or less populist authoritarian sort of aims. And so, for instance, just to give one example, the LGBTI+ club at Bogazici was shut down by the rector after he was appointed, based on false accusations concerning its involvement in an exhibit that was art exhibit that was purportedly offending religious sentiment. But police conducting a search within the club's premises are said to have found proof that the club also adheres to the armed Kurdish organization, the PKK. So you see, in case offending religious sentiment is not enough to criminalize the club, a supplement in the Lacanian sense is added to make sure that it is conveniently framed as devious. What are certain patterns, observable patterns in this process of bringing society into line, of which Bogazici was the last instance, is that this power is not bound by any particular law or norm or ideology or moral or commonsensical limits. That's what I'm pointing to. So it is a form of very flexible, limitless type of power that constantly meddles with institutional autonomy and creates discourses that criminalize opponents. It is unpredictable. It sort of applies shock and awe measures. For instance, during the expulsion of academics, of the Academics for Peace, midnight decrees were used on Fridays. And that was the case also with the appointment of the Bogazici rector by the president of the country. This happened on January 1, which was a Friday, and it was at midnight that we sort of came aware of the decision. So it's unpredictable, and it creates a constant turmoil, a permanent mobilization, a permanent change in society, which also facilitates the polarization that is sought for this power to remain in control of everything. And lastly, the synchronization involves bringing everything to a level of mediocrity, not allowing for institutions or instances or intellectuals to excel. So that is also how a sort of character erosion is being imposed on society. Here, I would also like to note that similar processes are underway in other countries, such as Hungary, Poland, Russia, and Brazil, where right-wing populist parties are growing increasingly authoritarian and turning against gender rights, turning against LGBTI plus groups, and against academic liberties. So we must think of this as a process in which Turkey sort of fits this pattern of populist authoritarianism in the world. And I'll be very happy to discuss some of these examples with you in the Q&A if you wish to do that. And I think it would be redundant to speak about how Trump's presidency in the US also initiated similar attacks against the university, either by defunding public universities or by injecting a good dose of anti-intellectualism. One refrain that finds an echo here in Turkey is Trump's infamous tweet saying, I quote, "Our children must be educated, not indoctrinated," unquote. The Turkish counterpart to that was when the pro-AKP press and media accused Bogazici of indoctrinating the youth with Western values, alienating young generations with imported discourses that put our native and national values at risk. So all in all, we've been undergoing a process of de-democratization. The erosion of academic liberties must be considered within this context, I think. And so I'd like to consider, albeit briefly, the resistance at Bogazici as an attempt at re-democratization. And you tell me how I'm doing on time.
Yes, I'm going to give you 1 more minute, okay? Because now you used your 10 minutes, but that's fine. If we can continue for another minute, that's fine.
Okay, just another minute, because in any case, the resistance part will be accounted for by my colleagues. I just wanted to say that Bogazici really did have a democratic tradition. And right after the appointment of the rector on January 1, there was an immediate rejection, a quasi-unanimous rejection by faculty members. And surprisingly, the resistance was organized in a democratic way, in a horizontal way. So I remember just Machiavelli's claim that people used to freedom will always put up a fight when it's taken away from them. So the Bogazici resistance was organized in a horizontal way, creating our own communication channels by moving out of the formal communication channels within the university, creating weekly forums, committees, and a division of labor between us. And of course, this newly founded academic body is not exactly the same as the previous one. So I want to just close my remarks by saying this is the ongoing construction of a new body of academics that are trying to get used to doing something which is not usually what they do, that is, trying to create a political resistance and speak a political language. And what is interesting, we're still in the heat of action, but this resistance has transformed us in many ways. And I'd be glad to answer questions on that in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. This was a very good start, and we have so much meat, I think, for thought. So we will welcome all the questions and comments in the chat room, as I previously mentioned. Before I pass it on to Seda, let me just share 2 points that would facilitate the discussion. Each speaker will have 10 minutes in total, so that we can have enough time for a fruitful discussion in the end. And second point is, I would like to thank to our co-host organizations, and you can see the list of their name on the flyer. And also this panel is co-organized by a research institute on Turkey, which is a New York-based non-governmental organization. Seda, it's now your turn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, North Africa Academics for Peace organization, for organizing this event, and thank you very much for inviting me for this talk. And Zeynep has provided us with an excellent background. I'd like to push it more towards the academy, the university as an institution, and talk a bit more about what has been going on at Bogazici and how it is related to institutional autonomy, discussions on institutional autonomy, and also freedom. So, I mean, an outsider or even someone from Turkey, when reading the news about the Bogazici protests, would, I think, be happy, delighted, but also at the same time would somehow normalize what has been going on at Bogazici, and would say that, would immediately think that this is just another step or another episode of what has been going on in Turkey in the post-peace process and in the post-failed coup d'etat attempt of 2016. And actually, yeah, there is something peculiar about the Bogazici resistance and the ongoing protests, but also what has been going, but also this imposition of government control over the institution, over Bogazici, through the appointment of a central appointment of a rector by President Erdogan, and following that, opening up 2 new faculties, 2 new schools, communication and law, again, without consulting to the faculty and to other constituents of the university, and without making any further plans. And again, following that, appointing again from centrally a new dean for the law faculty, a notorious person who used to work at an institution at the Marmara University in Istanbul, and who was very active in the 2016 purges of academics for peace, in particular at Marmara University, and following that, replacement of our democratically elected director of the Social Sciences Institute with the new advisor of the rector. I mean, all these top-down and central appointments are just another example of imposition of government control over Bogazici, which obviously undermines institutional autonomy and also academic freedom. However, as a historian, when you look at the history of the university as an institution in Turkey, we can immediately see a lineage of suppression in the form of eliminations, purges, exiles, and even imprisonments, and against that, a lineage of resistance, and later on some revival again in those institutions. So the Bogazici protests and what has been going on at Bogazici can also be contextualized within that lineage of elimination, purge, or state intervention and resistance against that state suppression. However, there is something there is something peculiar to this general lineage, because despite the fact that in Turkey the university is founded within the domain of the state, especially in 1933 when the first university in Turkey was founded, Istanbul University, it was founded only after the almost 70% elimination of the personnel or the faculty of the previous university, Darül Fünun, and all these purges were made owing to the fact that the previous faculty was not making enough advocacy of the Republican ideals and so on. So, we should not be forgetting that the university as an institution in Turkey is founded in the state domain, and Turkish state with its authoritarian and centralizing political culture has always been quite suspicious towards all kinds of autonomy, be it academic, institutional autonomy of the university or other kinds of autonomy. So autonomy in the minds of the ruling elites has always evoked some kind of, suspicion, some kind of fear of separatism, and so on. So Bogazici, since it has started to operate as a public university in the last 50 years, and this year is the 50th year of its transformation to a higher education institution, because before that it was Robert College, which was in mid-19th century founded as a Protestant missionary organization. It has operated in such a setting. However, Bogazici, along with a couple of other universities in Turkey, thanks to its tradition and thanks to its identity, has managed to keep and sustain a dose of autonomy. And this is perhaps something peculiar to Bogazici as an institution. And this tradition and this identity was made possible thanks to its bottom-up decision-making mechanisms, thanks to its, again, decentralized decision-making mechanisms through commissions, through the Senate, through the executive committee, and so on. And what the new appointment, which is very much understood, or which has very much resonated in other sectors of the society, but also among other students and universities of other, or faculty of other universities in Turkey, is that it is immediately translated into the hijacking of collective will of a collectivity, which was immediately evoked the word of qayyum. Qayyum is originally an Arabic word which means, and which is in popular usage is employed as the if I may say, hijacking of collective will through some government appointed officers or some governors, and it became popular in the public jargon after, again, 2016, after the mayors of Kurdish municipalities were disappointed by Ankara and replaced by by the governor of that locality. So the Bogazici central appointment of the rector was immediately translated and resonated as such. And this I would like to draw attention to. I don't know how, am I running out of time, Dilan?
You have 2 more minutes.
Okay,
if you need extension, I can give you 1 extra.
Thank you.
So you have time until 12:30.
Thank you. So Bogazici tradition and identity, and as I said, decentralized decision-making mechanisms, especially I'm more talking about the administrative aspect, has made it possible that the university as an institution has the power of decision-making in its own hands. And this is actually the conditions of possibility of making free research, conditions of possibility of free speech, again, forming the curriculums of the courses accordingly, making the recruitments accordingly. So basically institutional autonomy of university, which we have been basically protesting for, is apparently the conditions which make possible free speech. And these top-down appointments of rectors followed by top-down opening of new faculties, and again appointment of a new again a loyalist dean, and lately cancellation of all elections in the university by the rectorate has been highly unwelcomed and seen as disturbing or curbing this autonomy of the university. And as I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, the history of university as an institution in Turkey is a history of elimination, purge, but also resistance. And of course, this repression and imposition of government control over Bogazici has created an immediate resistance, both among the faculty and also among the students, as our students are going to explain in a couple of minutes. And actually, as one of my British friends asked me whether this was anticipated or not, I think this move of the government was definitely anticipated, because it's been happening all around Turkey since 2016, and after 1980, there's this higher education institution, YÖK in Turkish, founded up in Ankara, intervening in the university, intervening in the university's autonomy. This move was anticipated. We knew that it was coming. However, in my opinion, the level of aggression and the speed were not anticipated. Plus, I think the resistance of both the faculty and the students were not anticipated as such, even personally, I was not expecting that there was going to be such a cohesion and there was going to be such a, perseverance among both academics and students. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Seda. So yeah, you shared detailed historical trajectory as well, which is much needed, I think. And I'm pretty sure we have some questions about that and comments in the end. Thank you. So our third speaker is Berivan from Bogazici University. I'm just leaving the floor to her. Welcome, Berivan.
Thank you, Dilan. Welcome you too. Hello to you all. I am Berivan, Bogazici University Turkish Language and Literature second year student. I'm currently one of the dozen of students released on probation. First of all, thank you for the space you have created to students to express themselves and their democratic demands. As far as this fear, dystopia, and my unprivileged identity allows, I will tell you what happened and why I have been subjected to as a Bogazici student in the last 2 months. On the night of 2nd of January, a new rector was appointed to Bogazici University by the Prime Minister, and this was the first time since 1980 a professor of our school was appointed as a rector. And the only exception in the 1980 that there was a military coup in Turkey. This is the 16th day of protest, and for these days, 11 students have been arrested. 2 of them have been released, by 9 of these students are still in jail because of using their peaceful protest right. 27 students sentenced to house arrest, which means they are in jail in their houses. More than 500 people have been taken into custody. On the January 4, after this undemocratic appointment, a press release was held to demand the withdrawal of this appointment. After reading press release at the South Campus's gate, a forum was held on the North Campus with our friends from other school and all components of the school. At the end of the forum, we decided to read the press release in front of the rectorate as well. We all walked from the North Campus to the South. And before we got to South, hundreds of police piled up in front of the South Campus, and they told us we could not enter our school. After the students said that this is our school, you cannot stop us from entering our school, the police started attacking with tear gas and water cannon. On the night of this incident, house of 20 students was raided. They were detained by breaking their doors unlawfully. This arrest aimed to end our protest did not give any student a step back, and a resistance tent was set up in front of the trustees, which says Kayyum's office in the campus on the same day. The resistance was continued within the campus. Various activities were organized every day in the resistance tent. Yoga, meditation, roasting, halwa, and the art exhibition were some of them. We continue our protest in peaceful ways. Art has been agreed to for people to express their ideas through the story, and we, as Bogazici students, want to emphasize through art that we do not trust them. Nearly 400 work was sent to do this art exhibition. Most of them were anonymous, and all of them were exhibited without being selecting. As you would appreciate, it takes time to set up an exhibition. Our friends hung all the works in certain parts of the school. During this hanging process, the works were kept on the ground and were taken from there to hang. While the works were waiting on the ground, someone came and took a photo of the work with a photograph of Kaaba and shared it on social media for lynching. As if always on the ground throughout the exhibition. That work, like all other works, was kept waiting to be hung. It was not put on the ground consciously in any way. The creator of the work has placed one of the most important Mesopotamian figure called Shahmaran on the Kaaba and put the LGBT plus flag all 4 sides. The exhibition is not affiliated with any club or community and was organized by the volunteer students. And the person who sent the work in question is anonymous. All institutions of the state and the government supported the lynching campaign initiated with the effect of this work and targeted LGBT+ and committed hate crimes. And 2 of our 4 friends were detained at the campus gate, and 2 were detained when they went to the police station on suspicion of being followed. It has been decided that 2 of our friends will be under arrest and 2 others will be under house arrest. Bogazici students called for a press statement at the South Gate on February 1 to condemn this baseless detention. But even before the time of the call came, our campus gates were closed by the police and our exit and entry were prevented, and many of our friends who come from Etiler from our press release were detained. We were also imprisoned inside the campus, and the protest was decided to continue inside the South Campus. All of students prisoned in the campus went to trust office, and Melih Bulu has been called upon to open a way for dialogue. But he did not answer. After we waited 4 hours, he called a police army inside the campus. There is no blockage in front of the trust or any restriction on freedom of any person. There were dozens of security at the door of Melih Bulu, and the entry and exit, the trust were never prevented. Actually, he had us blockaded and threatened by the police he called. When the cops landed on the campus, we all sat down in the silence. We didn't resist them, but they just pushed, squeezed, and kicked us with their shields while we were sitting. To protect ourselves, we got up, stood side by side. They continued to beat us with their shields, kick and insult us, then detained us by dragging, kicking, and pulling our hair. They applied reverse handcuffs to us. They continued their insult and beating on the bus. After hospital control, we were taken to Vatan police office, and from the moment I stepped there, I realized even everything was taught out of the finest detail and was based on psychological intimidation. We were kept waiting on the bus at the police headquarters for hours. Lawyers who wanted to meet with us and learn our name were prevented. Then they took us into the building. We entered the building from the car park. It was cold and dark place, and it was also extremely dirty. They took us one by one on dressing room and took our belongings. Then we were placed in the detention centers. We stayed at least 8 people in the 2-person wards, which had not been cleaned for the years and had a few dirty spunks inside. They brought us spoiled food. Even to meet our toilet needs, we had to shut for hours and start a mass riot. There was no place for hygiene in the toilets and as in the custody rooms. Neither toilet paper nor soap. We requested them from the minute we first entered, and they never took it into consideration. Although lawyers brought pets to our menstruating friends, these pets were not given to us. They put one of our friends in a single ward because of having trans identity. One of the most terrible moments I have experienced was when I was taken to the hospital control for the 2nd time. We, as 7 women, were taken to the hospital with 10 special police officers called rescue operation. All of them were men. On the way off of the hospital, this police officer forced us to listen a song that contains terrible words. Like the protesters are dogs, the fight with this protester is fight of honor. Let hit them without mercy, friends. I wish they'd let me to shot them and broke their bones, etc. When we reacted, they verbally harassed by saying, "Are you a dog on you?" When we explained the situation to other police leaders, she said, "Here's the police car, everything is possible here." And also I was deprived of my medication, although there were medication that I should use regularly. My medication was not given to me on the pretext that there is no doctor report. The next day, although the doctor report came, they did not give me my medication. I was reading, crying in the pain in the morning. My friends shouted for my medication to be brought in, but it didn't help. Finally, the ambulance was called, and I rejected to go hospital with and police on my own. My medicine reached me when the incoming paramedic said, "Bring her medicine, she is in a very bad condition." And not to mention the triggering things I suffered because of ethnicity and my name. This is and dozens of other, I have been subjected to psychological and physical violence. They also continued this violence in the courthouses. Said, "Don't rejoice in vain, you will be arrested. Mattress prison is waiting for you. You cannot go out from there." Now I am on probation right now, and I have been released with a mandatory that I have to sign every week on Monday. Also, Melih Bulu and our faculty started a discipline proceeding against us. Before I end my speech, I want to remind our demands that we have repeated seriously and insistently for the last 2 months: resignation all of trusted rectors, restoring democratic rector election in which all university components have a say, immediate release of our friends who are under arrest and house arrest. Thank you to all for being here and listening to me. Yours sincerely.
Thank you very much, Berivan, also for being very mindful about time. And it must be a privilege for this audience to listen to your talk, and we give you recognition for everything that you have gone through. So our last speaker is Ömer Demir, another student from Bogazici University. Welcome, Ömer, and this is now your turn.
Hello, everyone. I hope you hear my voice well. I don't know how long it will take, but I'm guessing it will be shorter, a little bit shorter than 10 minutes. I'm Ömer. I'm a fourth-year sociology student, and a member of the Bogazici University LGBTI Studies Club. I was formerly also a member of the Social Sciences Club. I thought that it would be meaningful for me to convey you the nature of the kind of protests that are taking place in and outside of the campus, since I assume that most of you don't have a direct access to the field. And also I want to convey the points of view, the perspective of the LGBTI students who are participating in these protests. I want to present to a kind of chronology here and show how the point of view of the LGBTI plus were separated at a certain point from other points of view. And by that, I don't mean that different points of views cannot merge for a singular purpose. And in explaining this process, I want to use the Turkish word for the appointed trustee, the kayyum, since I feel that this implies the relation of this strategy, which is connected to the many cities in the Kurdistan right now. So this is not our first appointed trustee. This is not our first kayyum. Our first kayyum was appointed in 2016. His name was Mehmet Özkan, and he, with him, the attacks started on the LGBTI pluses, as well as to many other groups, which can be observed through many things, as well as the activities of the student clubs. For example, the BU LGBTI plus, my club, was doing queer performances nights up to this point, which was cancelled after Mehmet Özkan's decision. Also, a scholarship which was organized to be given to a trans student was cancelled as well by Mehmet Özkan. So this period has started like before Melih Bulu. The attacks were prior to him, and like my dear teacher Zeynep Gambetti mentioned the attacks on the institutions, for instance. Yet I feel that somehow certain groups have never been parts of these institutions. For instance, one of our teachers, Mine Eder, who is participating in our protests in the campus as well, had stated in a recent interview, a meeting like this that she participated, that they, as the teachers, they decided in the Mehmet Özkan period, when he was first appointed, to work with him in response to his keeping the institutional integrity. That's her words, the institutional integrity. And the attacks on the LGBTI pluses in these times and keeping the institutional integrity implies a kind of exclusion that has been going on prior to Melih Bulu. After this period, before Melih Bulu was appointed, the COVID pandemic has started, and this implied worse conditions for many LGBTI plus students, since many of them who were living in their houses or dormitories had to return to their family homes, which did not present them psychologically healthy environment. They suffered psychological, economical, and physical violences. And after that, Melih Bulu arrived, appointed to Boğazici, and of course, the protests had started, and the positions of the LGBTI plus in the protests were started to be questioned by certain groups in the early weeks. This is not a question right now because of the strong responses of the majority of the students participating in the protests. The student representative board, which did not have legitimacy in the eyes of many students, had opened polls which made people choose whether there should be rainbow flags in the protests or not, whether they should talk about mentioned LGBTI plus rights. In other words, they opened polls for basic human rights. These kind of issues led many of us to be more be on the field and voice our thoughts and political discourse. So we got, I believe, even more strong in voicing our political discourse during Melih Bulu's time in Boğazici. For example, we can talk about the LGBT rights. We can talk about the femicides that are happening in Turkey. We can talk about Hrant Dink, the murdered Armenian journalist in Turkey. And as we are supported by the Muslim objectors of the government, which the government tried to render invisible for many years in the media and elsewhere. Yet I feel that as Zeynep Gambetti said, we see new decrees every Monday, which we cannot respond due to the curfews on weekends, which means that we are under constant attacks every week. Yet I feel that we are stronger in many ways, not only in our discourse, in which we can bring forward subjects that have been tried to marginalize in the discussions in the public sphere of Turkey, but also in the support that was demonstrated for us, the support from the other universities, which are kind of mimicking our protests in certain ways and continuing and spreading them throughout the country, as well as high schools, which also suffered from kayyums, the appointed trustees, specific universities, most of them historical, conventional high schools. Also certain politicians, of course, in varying degrees. Yeah, NGOs, grassroots organizations, and as Berivan said, there are at the moment a discipline proceeding going on for the students of Bogazici University who were taken into custody in the police occupation of the campus on February 1st. We recently did a symbolic protest in which we presented petitions to the appointed trusteeship of the Bogazici University, not the rectorship, but the kayyumluk of the Bogazici University. And we stated that we were also there at that time. And we are, with our friends, we support them, and we don't want to give them the chance to separate us from each other against their strategies of marginalization and criminalization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ömer. It's again a privilege to listen to your experiences, especially when we consider that the LGBTI plus community is directly targeted by the government. And this is not something new, actually, but it's getting worse. So that's why it's quite important for this group of people to listen to your on-site experiences, and thank you for that. So now I'm going to open the floor for questions and answers. I'm hoping to have fruitful exchange. We have a couple questions, but let's have the first round of questions. I'm going to start with the two of them. The first question came from Alessandro Porra, and I think he addressed the question to each and every one of you. So the question is, could the protests of Bogazici University be somehow considered a kind of Gezi version 2? In other words, could the Bogazici University protests evolve into a new Gezi protest? So this question is again addressed to all of you, I think. And the second question, for this round, I will only take two questions, okay? If you like, you can take notes, or you can just read them from the chat room. So the second question is coming from Yasemin Akçagüner. I will directly read it. Geçmiş olsun Berivan. What is the way forward for the movement, and how can we help with next steps in the resistance? Are Bogazici University students considering striking on student fees or other harsh payments as students? So this question is probably addressed to Berivan and Ömer especially. So Zeynep, if you're ready, can we start with you?
Sure. I'd like to say that this question comes up very often in discussions. And I think it is an important question, but we must think of the specificity of Gezi. It was back in 2013, before the major deinstitutionalization had started. And its demands were much wider than academic liberties. Now, I think that the present moment is critical in that Bogazici seems to have acquired a national and international importance, which, as Seda has remarked, which surprised us as well, because it is one university out of many others that have already been devastated. I think that through the Bogazici protests a channel has been opened for the voicing of discontent against many other issues in Turkish society. First of all, against the lack of democracy, the lack of rights, the totally pitiful state in which the judiciary is, but also the state in which other universities are. In addition to the economic situation where there is growing poverty, growing unemployment on the one hand, and the sort of concentration of more and more money to control public, the treasury, the concentration in the hands of the government. And therefore, there is growing inequalities in Turkish society. But I think the chances for a more or less general reform within Turkish society hinges upon our being able to translate our struggle for academic rights and institutional autonomy into other demands. And I guess that's where the tricky part is. Academic liberties are not even important within the Turkish setting, have lost their value. So this struggle should not basically be stuck within the Bogazici context. I believe Bogazici is a sort of crack in the ice, but it must grow beyond Bogazici if and when other portions of society actually use this crack in order to express their own discontents. So that's a very, should I answer the second question also?
Yes,
or no?
yes,
That was for
yeah.
the
I think that was enough. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Seda, can we please continue with that, with you? Sorry.
Thank you. Adding up to what Zeynep has just said, I mean, Gezi is not the only form of popular uprising. I mean, it is popular and it resonated among large sections of the society. But as Zeynep has just pointed out, it happened at a particular time and place and at a particular historical juncture that Turkey was going through in 2011, and these are totally different times. So in case the question is whether the demands of the faculty and the students are kind of turning it, I mean, whether they have the Gezi uprising in mind, I would say not really. I mean, the demands here are more academic and are more to do with the if I may say, with autonomy, basically autonomy of university as an institution, and also freedom in a setting where there is increasing monopolization of power, where there is increasing normalization of executive decrees, and also curtailment of democratic rights. So it is, I mean, it may of course turn into a Gezi, it may not turn into a Gezi. We can't, I think, speculate on that at the moment, but this demands here are more specific, and it, I mean, for it to turn into a wider social movement, we need I mean, there are many other factors which are non-Bogazici related factors that would expand the political field and turn it into another social movement. But for the time being, the demands are or the space or the political space that is that has expanded are not enough to make it another Gezi or so. So yeah, I think this would be, I think the Bogazici resistance and the demands and the resistance of the students, as you heard from Berivan and Ömer, I mean, are valuable in, and also the consolidation of the Bogazici faculty, which was also, in my opinion, not much anticipated, are itself, you know, precious enough, are significant enough in itself. So yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I completely agree with you. So Berivan, it's your turn. Would you like to add on what Seda and Zeynep mentioned? Can you please unmute yourself? Yeah.
Now?
Yes.
I want to give a short answer to this question. Our motivate to make this protest is may request academic freedom in Turkey and the democratic election in the old institution. That's all.
Yes, thank you. Ömer, would you like to say anything on this question?
As for the Gezi question, I was a high school student at the time, and I was not living in the Istanbul, so I could not narrate my experiences. But I have many friends who have been in the protests of Gezi. Based on their experiences, I could say or state the similarities between the Bogazici protests and Gezi. Like, the one thing I can say that is the participants of many groups of society, which are usually seen as separate or unrelated to each other, coming together to protest some kind of an authoritarian tendency in the cities, city politics. For the what should we do question, if these are asked by the non-Turkish people living outside of Turkey, I could maybe suggest following our social media accounts, which we most frequently use, and try to give the translations of our works and texts. I could say that, and I could also say to share the links of news about us. And for LGBTI plus people or students, there is a need of safe spaces. Yes, of course, I saw one thing about that in the chat. But I'm actually kind of ignorant on these subjects, since people are put into prison in Turkey for financing protests. Like, I'm constantly thinking of the case of Osman Kavala, and I don't know how these things are organized in a legal way in Turkey. But I do know, for example, that Joe Biden is kind of serious in his politics for the rights of LGBTI plus, not only US and also in other countries. And I also know that a queer organization has recently met with the American embassy, American Grand Embassy or something like that in Ankara, in which the organization conveyed the details of our protests to them.
Yes.
Dilan, may I just add one?
Of course, yeah.
Because I thought about, Gezi was about an alternative society. It wasn't just about, it was an alternative vision for society. It was a non-neoliberal society, more communitarian type of, ecological vision of society, where, as Ömer said, groups that are polarized within, the political discourse actually did come together. so it was a process of construction of a we, as I was, saying at the beginning, that was very unexpected. It didn't fit into any normative pattern. And I think maybe the way to think about the Boğaziçi protests and to expand them would be to think about an alternative to the actual university. To the actual university that is hierarchical, neoliberalized, and in which students and professors are sort of set apart, the alumni as well. At Boğaziçi, alumni, retired professors, students, and the personnel and the faculty could come together. And as Berivan was saying, we do hope to make elections again the norm in the choice of the rector. But we must go beyond the elections by faculty. For instance, how to include students into the decision-making processes at the university would be one of the ways in which to envision an alternative university. And I think that is also, that could prefigure a sort of Gezi in the academic scene in Turkey.
Okay, thank you for the contribution. Berivan, would you like to answer Yasemin's question? It also speaks to Itır Yakar's question. And I think Ömer has already covered that. And she asks how they can offer their support. And one idea is maybe to do fundraising or offer some scholarships. So I think they are wondering if there are some alternatives, ways of resistance, so that Boğaziçi students wouldn't feel alone and isolated.
First of all, thank you for their support. That's make us happy. Maybe they can help the student who need a lawyer and need money to find a lawyer or process during the probation. And there was 27 students in the house arrest. They cannot go out. They have to continue their life in their houses. Maybe they can't help them, or the student who need money for the process of police statement.
Okay, thank you, Berivan. And I don't want to miss Leyla Nezi's question. So let me read the message directly. In solidarity, as a RC graduate and former Boğaziçi University professor, I want to ask our academic friends about what is concretely happening right now. For example, in the last webinar, construction projects were mentioned in Boğaziçi University campuses. Concretely, what is happening and what may happen that would affect daily life, teaching and research at Boğaziçi University. I also want to ask, how successful do you think the attempt to denigrate Boğaziçi University in the media has been, given how much the society values BU and views it as the best university in Turkey? These questions all speak to each other, I think. We have a couple more questions that are similar to Leyla Nezi's question. So if you want to answer all of them together, I'm completely fine with that, because they all speak to the same topics, which is like the forms of resistance, what is going to happen next if the process fails, and what's exactly and concretely happening on the ground. And does it directly affect teaching and research quality in the university? If so, how? So let's start with, I would like to give more voice to students. Ömer, Berivan, are you willing to talk and answer this question? You don't have to give us a long answer though.
Yeah, maybe I can give a short answer about the situation of the researchers and so on. Maybe Zeynep Gambetti would give a better explanation for that. But for kind of, I'm thinking about the open courses, for example. I mean, this is the reason I suggested our social media accounts for you to learn what we are doing every day, every weekday in the campus. Open courses is one of those activities where our teachers came and presented topic that they are studying on. And these courses are open to all participants. I think these kind of activities can be spread more, be mimicked in other campuses in abroad as well.
Berivan, would you like to say anything on this question?
Recently, I could not go to the campus because of there was too many civil police in the campus, and the first moment I entered, they took my and my friends' photos until we get out the campus. But when I go, I can say that, as Ömer said, open classes was organized, is organized every day, and the pancart making is continue every day. A tent is always in the rector's office in front of the door. Recently, we have some problems with the security personnels. A question about that, I think, came from chat.
Yes, Berivan, it came from Meriç Taylan, and I was about to mention that too. So thank you for bringing it up.
I think the security personnel is all of them, yeah, not all of them, but half of them is police in the dress of security, private security, because half of them I have never seen in campus before this appointment. They ask us for our identity, for our to down our mask and to see our face. They bully us in the campus. I think they are civil.
Yes, thank you for that. And I think we have extra 10 minutes left. Would you like to like wrap it up before we end the conversation? I would like to leave the floor to Zeynep and Seda as well. Seda, you see all the questions in the chat room. As I said, there are several similarities. People are asking how they can support students and faculty members of Bogazici University. So I would be delighted to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much. Before answering to those questions briefly, though, I would like to just add up to what Berivan and Ömer have mentioned in their talks. I mean, all these protests, both the faculty and the students' protests, are taking place in heavy police presence. So this, the new rule or the new rectorate, the new administration, obviously is only possible. Is only possible with heavy police presence, not only inside the campus, but also outside the campus and all along the neighborhood. The Hisarüstü neighborhood where the university campus is located, and even towards Etiler, and the number of police forces and special forces increases on certain days when there is demo or any student activities. So this is also one of our primary demands as faculty, that the police presence inside and outside the university and the police barricades surrounding the campuses should be abolished. And as for what is happening concretely, as I've said, I mean, there are certain administrative changes, opening of new schools, deans, etc. And as I also briefly talked about in my talk, there is these commissions at Bogazici, the Senate and the Executive Committee are significant, components and mechanisms of bottom-up decision-making processes at the university. So what is going on is actually not the cancellation of those commissions, but basically the new rector, the new administration is trying to change the composition of those commissions and senates, so to make so to be able to, eliminate any kind of oppositionary opinion in those commissions. Actually, that's what has been going on in the last 2 months. So all of those appointments from outside, the new dean, opening of new schools, etc., they all have to do with the aim of changing the composition of those commissions and making the oppositionary voices unheard. And as Berivan and Ömer have very well remarked, I mean, there is a transfer of new security personnel at our university. I mean, they are private security, but they very much side with the new administration. So so basically, there is now this violent confrontation between the new administration through various, between the new administration and us. And this is made through different tools, through changing the composition in the commissions, through bringing in new security personnel, through police, and also crackdown on students and student arrests, and as for teaching and research, where the second semester has still not started, it's going to start on the 18th of March. But I mean, there is still no direct intervention in research or curriculum or any kind of projects. So we still do not have any concrete, we still haven't gone through that, but I'm sure there's going to be much, self-censoring when it comes to social sciences. There's going to be more, certain topics, which are certain controversial topics, are going to be studied less, I assume. And as for the engineering and as for the departments, I think the projects that have more market value are going to be, more valued than the others. So I think this is all I would like to say for now, and I'd like to leave the space to Zeynep if she wants to add anything.
Yeah, we have 6-7 more minutes before we finish. So you can use the time very efficiently. And Berivan and Ömer, if you also want to make contributions after Zeynep's talk, please don't hesitate to intervene or raise your hand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dilan. Yes, as Seda said, I mean, I think for the time being, what we are doing is holding our place. So we're trying to acquire staying power. It's been 2 months that the attacks are continuing. And since I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the 5th or the 6th of January that we started doing our noon vigils. So every day professors are doing a noon vigil with our robe attire. Now, and every Friday we are reading weekly bulletins, and when something happens which is important and unexpected, we are again reuniting on the campus to express our discontent and rejection. But I think through the mechanisms of administrative mechanisms and administrative games that will be played, this is not the, we're only seeing the beginning. Now that the faculties have been created, the new 2 schools, they will be populated with pro-government academics, for instance, just like the police were populated, the security were populated by sort of people close to the police force. So there is this game being played, and I think we need staying power. This is going to be a long struggle, and we shouldn't go out of breath. I mean, I think that's the main support that we need, is how to maintain that power, to go on day after day after day, right? With the police attacking the police barricades outside, something happening at midnight, a new school being created. All these are very disorienting. And I think what we need is the unity that, first of all, we have succeeded in sort of building within us, within the students' body, within the academic body, but also I think support letters help. Institutional support letters do help. Especially from professional associations or from your own departments or from your universities. These help in showing us that we are not alone. We do receive a lot of support from Turkish civil society and from other universities, but receiving support from abroad is very important. And also publicizing this. I mean, there needs to be an awareness that this is one of the best universities in Turkey that is sort of dissolving, being sort of lowered to a mediocre level, and therefore creating awareness among especially the constituencies. I mean, if you have in the States, you're a politician that you can write to, that would be very important as well. So yeah, we need to be surrounded by this shield of protection with your support here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ömer and Berivan, I would definitely want to give the floor to you before we just end the conversation. There's also one more question that is directly relevant to all the points that we have mentioned. And you don't have to give a long answer, as I said, and I think this is a difficult question, which requires collaborative thinking. So the question came from let me read the name again, from Emin Joruşlu. How to amplify the resistance up to a level which can no longer be ignored or thought suppressible by the authorities. As I said, this is a very broad question, a little bit abstract, but you are the ones who are in Istanbul, who are on campus, who have been going through these difficulties. If you want to tailor the question a little bit towards what you have in mind, that's completely fine with me as well. So I just want to leave the floor to both of you.
Maybe I can start. I was thinking of a short conclusion, but for this question, I'm not sure. The Erdogan regime at the moment seems to be involved in the new friendships with the West. In that the AKP, Justice and Development Party, is in its discourse, there's still, again, after a while, the desire to be in the European Union. But the European Union Commission speaker, I guess, have published a statement on the subject. So I don't know, how can you have an effect on us that would amplify our resistance to the level of being non-ignorable? I don't know the answer to that. But I want to emphasize my earlier message of saying that we are stronger than the past. I said that our queer performance night was cancelled in the Mehmet Özkan period, but recently, 1 week ago, I guess, we made a concert. We do concerts almost each week, and me and some of my friends formed a queer band and participated in that gig. But that was something close to the queer performance nights that we had. There was something similar to that energy. Maybe this is not the best example to show that we are stronger, but after that we were harassed targetedly by the AKP sympathizer journal Yeni Akit. Our photos were published as the LGBT perverts, or the boys who tries to look like girls and discourse like that. So we are confronted with a mind that is struggling to understand our very own existence, and this is of course not limited to LGBTI+. I think the same story goes for Kurds and all groups of minorities in Turkey. But I want to leave you with the message of which suggests that we are stronger than the past.
Okay, thank you, Ömer. Much appreciated. It's ironic that this kind of motivating messages always comes from those who are targeted, right? And the ones who are watching it actually come and ask us how they can help, but also it's their responsibility to figure out how they can help. You know, solidarity requires responsibility. So it has both sides, and I actually invite everyone to think about that. This is a kind of also invite everyone who's watching this video to think and try to come up with certain ways to help and give their support in order to stand in solidarity with the Bogazici community. So before I end the session, let me just read the message that is sent by one of our members of Academics for Peace North America, İlker Aslantepe. Dear all, our international call for solidarity with Bogazici resistance is still open for signatures and institutional support. We condemn the actions against the students and ask for the withdrawal of all charges against them. So please consider signing this petition. And let me just kindly remind you that this petition has already been signed by approximately 4,800 faculty members, as well as more than 30 institutions, ranging from NGOs to research institutes. So again, I would like to thank each and every one of you for accepting our invite and for sharing your experiences with us today. And also I would like to thank to audience for being with us, for watching us on behalf of Academics for Peace North America. In solidarity, thank you.
Thank you, Dilan. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Dilan.
you for inviting
And
us
thank you
and for your time.
for the organization, and thank you for the solidarity.
Thank you.